So this is more of a long-term review instead of an in-depth review. There are already a ton of videos on the internet about what these computers can do and the specs and their performance. So in this video, I just want to talk about how this computer positively impacted my business and even just what I can accomplish with it. Just for the sake of it, here are the specs for my computer. Not even the top of the line, just pretty well balanced. I wanted really good battery life and still good performance. So why did I pick this computer? First of all, I was gonna go for the 14-inch, but coming from a 27-inch iMac, I knew that 14 inches was gonna be a huge change. So I ended up going with the bigger size. Not my original plan, and yes, I sacrificed some portability with that, but the screen real estate is awesome and such a beautiful screen that I want more of it. So I want to talk about 3 things that I love about this computer. First of all, being the battery life, probably the most important one. It will last such a long time if you're just doing normal stuff like watching YouTube videos, answering emails, taking notes, pretty normal stuff, like not super intense stuff like photo or video editing. If you are doing those things, then yeah, it's gonna drain a little bit faster, but still you're gonna be able to do your job and not have to depend on a charger, which is huge. Sometimes you forget your charger, sometimes you know you're not going to be around a socket for a very long time, and that is just a great thing to not have to depend on it. Also, I know this is probably applicable to all MacBooks, but you don't lose any processing power when you're unplugged. I know that's pretty common with some Windows PCs, and it's just kind of weird because you basically have to be glued to a wall in order to be editing video or photo. Doesn't seem like a very ideal situation. So that's kind of why I was geared towards MacBook Pros for something like video or photo editing. And second thing are the ports. Everyone's mentioned them because it is such a big deal that they came back, and they do make a huge difference. I don't really use any dongles anymore. I haven't really used the HDMI port on my computer because I don't really use any external monitors, but it's nice to have it there, and the headphone jack is still there, thank goodness. I think the SD card slot is a huge benefit, and I'm so glad they have it because I use it every single day. All my cameras have SD cards, so that's awesome. And third is the performance. It is honestly super nice to just be able to throw a bunch of 4K footage on a timeline in Final Cut and be able to actually edit and scrub through it. I wasn't too concerned over export times or render times because I'm not gonna sit in front of my computer waiting for a video to export. I'm usually doing something else by that point, but just it was nightmarish trying to scrub through a timeline with 4K footage in Premiere on an Intel based Mac. It was just, you couldn't do it. It was unusable. You couldn't have 2 clips, 3 clips on top of each other, any sort of color or special effects. You just couldn't have it. It couldn't do it. It wasn't made for 4K editing. And this computer just breezes through it, especially since I went to Final Cut. I just wanted to see what the speed of this computer could be, not being hindered by Premiere. And outside of the editor, this computer can just have a ton of things running at the same time. It's only got 16 gigs of RAM, but it uses the SSD plenty for swap. Opening apps is just instant. I really haven't had any issues with it crashing. It feels like you're using a giant iPad, but just with a ton of power behind it. I can't really say more about how happy I am with this computer. My whole business is tied to this computer. My livelihood is tied to this computer. So it was a pretty big leap to sell the computer that I've been using for years and try something new, but I'm really, really glad that I did. It's just overall better for my mental health, being able to edit anywhere I want and just get out of this office, which I keep recording in. The freedom of it is awesome. The freedom to edit anywhere and to edit anything is just so liberating, and I'm so glad I made this purchase. Again, this is one of the best purchases I've made in a very long time. I can't really say if this computer is for you or it isn't. If you can afford it, I definitely think this is a great purchase because you can't really go wrong with it. If you're meeting the higher limits of your current computer, and if you have an Intel-based Mac, you probably are, then yeah, sure, this computer is gonna make a huge difference for you. If you're doing less intensive stuff like answering emails or being on Zoom or being on Microsoft Teams or just going to class or taking notes, then you probably don't need this much power behind your computer. You might be better off with the previous generation, the M1 MacBook Air or MacBook Pro 13-inch. You actually do get way better battery life with those. But if you want the bigger screens like the 14 inches or the 16 inches and you want the ports, then these computers are honestly such a great buy. But yeah, this is my experience with the MacBook Pro, the M1 Pro, MacBook Pro, not the M1 Max. Terrible names. That's the one awful thing about these computers is the names, or these chips. But anyway, that's all for today, and thank you for watching.